Chapter 21, Rescue? Chapter 21, Rescue? A giant tank, the same wood-built design invented and perfected by Bowser himself, was now sitting in the middle of the courtroom. Small cannonballs at the sides shot out randomly at spectators, and a rocky wrench popped up to throw his tools at people. Bowser was confused and almost relieved, but also more frustrated than ever. A bunch of Koopa Troop soldiers of assorted species burst out and attacked the Toad Guardsmen in some sort of epic rout. The battle was intense, so intense that it deserved a massive amount of description, but Bowser simply wasn't up to the task right now. His eyes were instead fully fixed on Peach, who held a super crown in her hands, staring back at Bowser. They were just feet away, but the battle made it almost impossible to reach each other. He tried to make her understand that this wasn't doing, reaching out for her not with a sinister grab but with a sympathetic gesture. She seemed to respond in kind, extending her own arms out and leaning forward to help him reach the super crown, as if giving this to him actually meant something to her. That meant more to Bowser than anything he had accomplished in a long time. But Peach was snatched away by her own guards, whisked away to safety, and Bowser couldn't reach her or the power-up. She cried out, "Bowsette! Peach! No! No!" Several Koopa Patrol units grabbed him and carried him back to the tank, where he would be safe. And inside the tank was a very familiar face, Kammy Koopa. "Welcome home," she said with a dry cackle. "We're glad to have you back." The tank took off and then its main cannon converted into a drill. It burrowed a tunnel and zoomed into the network of underground highways left by ancient civilizations. Back towards Bowser's kingdom. Back towards the Koopa Troop. Bowser held himself with his arms and tried not to cry. End of chapter. Chapter 22, Return? Chapter 22, Return? Bowser awoke from a dream, and as he always did these days, immediately began looking around at his body to make sure that it was still the way it was. Sometimes he hoped, even prayed to the star spirits, that he would wake up and everything would be back to the way it was, and he would be Bowsette once again. He had squandered his time ruling over a country he didn't want to rule, living a life he didn't care to win, all because he thought that conquering the Mushroom Kingdom would make him happy. Obviously, it did not, and now just as his opportunity was gone for good, he realized that the Super Crown may have been what made him happy after all, if only for a brief time. The tank he inhabited was currently returning still to Lava Land, where it would emerge at Bowser's castle and probably force him into a big parade with a hero's welcome and force the adoring populace on him, the thought of which made him queasy. "Hey Kammy," he asked. "Is there any way we could skip the formalities and maybe just go through a back entrance to the castle or something? No celebrations or anything, please." Kammy chuckled. "You know, we thought you were dead," she said. "When our spies reported that the villa on Vive Island had exploded, we assumed that there was some accident and you were incinerated in the blast. Then come to find out you were that devious Peach lookalike all along. Genius, I do say so myself." "Yeah, it was a good plan." "Even so." The tank suddenly got a whole lot bumpier. They seemed to be ascending towards the surface again. "Even so?" Bowser asked. "You should have stayed dead, my lord," Kammy said. "The new emperor isn't going to have a good purpose for you, you know." "What?" The tank emerged at the surface and stopped. Everyone got out, and 1,000 troops stood before them, with one person at the center. The new leader of Dark Land.
"Oh my Brighton!"
Bowser exclaimed. It couldn't be. End of chapter. Chapter 23, Chapter 23, It Could Be. Chapter 23, It Could Be. It was Princess Peach. And she was wearing a wedding dress.
"Welcome to your humble abode,"
Princess Peach said.
"We've been expecting your return for a very long time."
She giggled. This couldn't be. All this time with Peach, and she was actually working to take over Bowser's own kingdom? It didn't make sense. It had been only a few months since he had lifted her from captivity, and surely she wasn't involved in whatever succession crises were left in the wake of Bowser's previous abdication. Nothing added up. And yet, she was here. Everyone, including the 1,000 soldiers surrounding the tank, bowed down and faced Peach.
"Now it is time for us to have our real wedding,"
Peach said. The guards behind Bowser pushed him forwards off the tank and right up to Peach.
I'm sorry about what happened." "It's all in the past,"
Peach said.
"I'm sure you didn't mean it."
The words stung.
"No, but... Princess, I did mean those words. All of them. Everything I said back then was true. And that you were there to hear them. It was important." "I barely even remember them,"
Peach said.
"Let's forget all about that and get on with our life together."
She stepped up closer to Bowser and pecked him on the cheek. Bowser pushed her away.
"No, I don't want that. I just want you to understand. Earlier, you almost seemed like you did. And maybe I'm the one who didn't before, but after all this time I'm starting to realize things. I don't want any of this. I just want..."
"What a buzzkill," Peach said, her voice deeper and more ghastly. She disappeared in a poof and in her place appeared Dupliss, the shape-shifting Dupli ghost. Bowser's face turned from orange to red. The entire crowd of 1,000 soldiers burst into laughter. This laughter was sustained for 5 minutes, with Bowser standing there stoically as everyone around him broke down. If he had his power back, he would have crushed them all for defying the king of the volcanic Atlantis, leader of tribe Koopa, high priest of the Kukurites. But instead, he stood there and took it. After most of the chuckles died down, Duplish transformed into an off-color Koopa troll and patted Bowser on the back, at the rim of his shell.
"Come on, now," he said. "Let's go meet the real emperor."
And they headed up a dozen flights of stairs towards the throne room. Bowser felt a pang of anxiety, like this was going to change everything. As if whoever he would soon meet would be a reveal that would alter Bowser's world forever, even more than becoming Bowsette for the first time. End of chapter. Chapter 24, Chapter 24, The Emperor of Dark Land. Chapter 24, The Emperor of Dark Land. Bowser, Dupliss, Kami Koopa, and 100 soldiers behind them entered the throne room. It was supposed to feel like a heroic homecoming, but Bowser was being prodded along like he was a prisoner and there were certainly no adoring masses around to notice his presence. This was essentially what he had asked for when they were returning to his kingdom, but not in the same way that he had imagined. This was foreboding. As they approached the throne, Bowser saw something that confirmed all of his suspicions. It was almost an anticlimax to see who was sitting on the throne. Wendy O. Koopa, filing her nails and putting extreme attention into concentrating on that one specific task. She didn't seem to have even heard the hundreds of figures entering the room. Out of all of Bowser's children born to his first wife, he believed Wendy was always one of the most apt to be his true successor. Morton Jr., actually a half-brother he secretly adopted as a hatchling, always had machinations for the throne, and competed very directly with Ludwig, Bowser's firstborn. The other boys were largely left to their own devices, with Roy too interested in his own tough guy reputation and Larry, Lemmy, and Iggy too weak, but Ludwig and Morton Jr. were the ones that were most willing to crush the others to take the throne. However, Wendy was the only of the 7 to have the potential to be a true leader, in Bowser's eyes. She was vain, egotistical, and smart. As the middle child, she had plenty of older siblings to learn from, and plenty of younger siblings to boss around, and that gave her the power necessary to learn and become the next ruler of Dark Land. She was a lot like her mother in that way, though Wendy herself would never be forced to endure the pain and struggle of a 5-year revolution like she did. It almost brought a tear to his eye to see her like this. To be honest, though, Bowser had somewhat expected Bowser Jr. to be sitting there. He was far too young to assume the status, but he was sure that Kamek and Cammy would support him, propping him up as their puppet to ensure a peaceful transition until another of their progeny could prove remarkable enough. Wendy having defeated her rivals was a feat of its own, in that.
"Oh, Dad, didn't see you there,"
Wendy said.
"Just doing my nails."
Bowser, without being able to help it, bowed to his daughter. He was too proud of her to do anything otherwise. She looked down at the throne and realized where she was sitting.
Oh. Kaka.
She laughed and then hopped up from the throne.
"It's not me, don't worry. I ain't lookin' to be that kind of gal. Too much work."
Bowser got up and pretended that had never happened. Wendy still chuckled to herself, though. She walked over to Bowser's side as they waited for the Emperor to arrive and said,
"We really oughta get more chairs in here. It's a pain to do your nails standin' up, you know." Who is the Emperor?"
Bowser asked.
"You're about to see,"
Wendy said. Cammy teleported to in front of the throne and pulled out a tiny trumpet to blow on, but not much sound came out.
"All hail the Emperor of Dark Land, the all-new, all-different."
Hey, that was Bowser's title. Out from behind the throne, stepping into the spotlight was Boshi. Boshi was just some punk Yoshi who wasn't evil or anything. Why was he here? How did he prevail in the succession crisis? And then he, too, walked past the throne and stood facing the throne next to Bowser.
"How'd you end up here?"
Bowser asked him.
Boshi,
Boshi said.
"Ah, makes sense. Pretty interesting stuff."
Some drummers and chanting Koopas stepped out and lined the side of the room, making a loud racket that wasn't very nice to listen to and covered up whatever Cammy was saying as she continued to introduce the Emperor. Out stepped King Bob-omb. He quickly left to the side, as did Metal Mario, who would have been an otherwise very interesting boss had he won the succession.
"I love the way they do this introduction,"
Dupless says.
"It's so matching of the Emperor's character. Such strong playfulness. Like me."
What did that even mean? The singers stopped and the drummers quieted down into a drum roll. Who was it? Who was it? Bowser was dying with anticipation.
And here is the Emperor!"
Cammy shouted. The Emperor stepped out and then sat on the throne. Oh. That made sense. End of chapter. Chapter 25, Chapter 25, Such Wasn't Life. Chapter 25, Such Wasn't Life.
"Hello, Bowser,"
the Emperor greeted.
"Hello, Morton,"
Bowser said. Or to be more accurate, Dry Morton. A Koopa encased entirely in bone and dust, aside from piercing red eyes. He was grey and withered. Several decades as a dead pile of remains would do that to anyone. But he was still 16 feet tall, a gargantuan beast among gargantuan beasts. The first thing Morton did after this exchange was lean back and breathe a massive beam of fire towards Bowser and the many Koopa trolls behind him. The minions were guarded by their armor, and Bowser absorbed the fire as his royal blood dictated. He could not harness it any longer, but he was still a member of the Koopa family through and through.
"You are still the son I always wanted,"
Morton said.
"You abandoned me in the Kalimari Desert and told me I was a disgrace,"
Bowser said.
"That was then. I was 4.
Morton cackled, his bones jiggling and rattling together.
"Dr. Science-Stein and Kamek really did a number on me here, didn't they? They had no idea I was going to have the vitality as I so now. They seriously believed I would be complacent towards their wishes, like that Dry Bowser clone of yours you have. Or, had."
Bowser didn't respond. He didn't care much for Dry Bowser. His absence meant little.
"But I am glad that I awoke when I did. Your family was tearing itself apart. If I had not intervened, your sons may have all ended up killing one another. Instead, I let them simply bow to me, their grandfather." "Kamek is their grandfather,"
Bowser said.
"Was."
Bowser's eyes opened wide. He looked at Cammy, who looked away.
"You have neglected your children for half a year with your trifles. But they will all learn their true place in the Koopa family when this is all said and done. Wendy here is my official liege. Larry and Roy have enlisted in the Royal Defense Force. The rest did not fare as well, but they will learn, in time." "Even Morton Jr.?"
Bowser asked. Morton laughed.
"You giving him that name is an irony I could never live to have laughed about. It is fortunate that I am undead, then."
He laughed again.
"What happened to him?" "I sent him off to the Waffle Kingdom for higher education. What do you think, Bowser? He's in prison because he simply could not accept the truth of his existence. You never told him, Bowser. He was too loyal to your other son, the self-proclaimed conqueror."
Bowser Jr.? He had no idea which of the 5 remaining sons would be able to rally the others into some sort of organized faction. He had missed so much in his time as Bowsette. What had all of this become?
"You'll never get away with this,"
Bowser said.
"Now that I am here. Now that you are here, I can finally use your celestial blood to rejuvenate my body,"
Morton said.
"It's either you or Morton Jr., and I know you are too soft to let me choose the latter."
He was right.
"Take him away,"
Morton said.
"I want him to be put in the darkest cell we have. Then he'll know what it was like for me to lay a pile of bones for decades."
Escaped from a prison cell, ended up in a different prison cell. Bowser's life seemed almost like Peach's at this point. Captivity was not a very fun exercise, but this was definitely a fitting penance for all the harm he had caused over the years. Such was life. End of chapter. Chapter 26, Chapter 26, Dungeon Duos. Chapter 26, Dungeon Duos. This cell was a bit more damp, a bit more dark, than the one underneath the Koopa Bros. Fortress that Bowser had stayed in for a month before his criminal trial. But even if it was in worse condition, it was larger, and there were a dozen other prisoners to keep him company. It was a noticeable upgrade in every way. Even if he was tossed in, even if his arms and legs were bound, he was still Bowser, the power of the stars, the unholy terror of the Mushroom Kingdom. Even if he desperately didn't want to be so.
"You won't keep me here,"
he told the guards.
"You will let me go." "Emperor's orders,"
the Koopa Troll said.
"I should have never replaced the terracottas with you cretins,"
he shouted. The other prisoners all giggled softly. He gruffed.
"What?"
One dry, flaky voice in particular caught Bowser's attention.
"Old friend,"
Boom Boom said, weakly.
"I knew you would be here somewhere,"
Bowser said with a smile.
"How's it been?" "Boom Boom's been better. Hasn't worked out in a while."
Bowser's eyes adjusted to the darkness better and he saw what had become of Boom Boom. He was emaciated, his muscles gone and belly thin. His smile was with teeth that had been worn down, eyes that sagged. How long had he been in this prison?
"How long have you been in this prison?"
Bowser asked.
"Since the beginning,"
Boom Boom said.
"Your father, Kamek, that is, deemed Boom Boom a threat to the throne, so he had him put in here for the duration of the conflict." "You? Why would you ever have been a target?" "Boom Boom could have been a contender,"
Boom Boom said.
"He's given it a lot of thought since he got here, and Kamek was probably right. Out of everyone outside the royal family, Boom Boom was the only one who could have given it a fair shot. Boom Boom was the one who could convince you to abdicate, so he could have been the one to convince all the factions in Dark World to work together not from fear, but from allegiance. Kamek didn't want that because he feared Boom Boom'd make a democracy." "Would you have?" "Oh Brighton, no. Boom Boom doesn't trust the Goombas to vote with their minds,"
Boom Boom said.
"He would have done something more like a—" "Hey, knock off the chatter!"
one of the Koopa Trolls shouted.
"I am King Bowser. Don't you dare tell me what to do or you'll end up with a fiery dessert."
The Koopa Troll walked in front of the cell bars.
"The Emperor has informed us that you no longer possess your magical abilities after your recent fight with Mario. The only threat you would pose—"
Bowser roared, shaking the foundations of the prison cell and knocking the Koopa Troll onto the ground. No longer did they interrupt their discussion.
"Go on,"
Bowser said.
"I want to know. How did all of this happen? Was this all a mistake for me to leave?" "It may have been,"
Boom Boom said.
"You needed a rest. You needed to come to grips with yourself, because you were certainly not yourself when you left. But Boom Boom just didn't account on, well, the craziness. Uncle Psycho Kamek going, psycho." The Koopalings dividing between Larry and Ludwig, and then Kamek propping up Bowser Jr. General Guy's insurgency, funded by Game Guy of course. It was turning into chaos, and then Kamek and Cammy apparently decided that since those with royal blood had the power to be resurrected, they might as well use your father, Morton, Boom Boom means. At least that's what the others here have told. What idiots! Well, it ended the crisis. And 5 of my sons are imprisoned, as well as my best friend and probably most of my lieutenants. Actually, most of them fled into exile,
Boom Boom said.
Boom Boom here's Swamp King was out near Glitzville, and Big Bertha was amassing troops in the block heap C, not that it matters anymore. Only King Bob-omb submitted to his rule. General Guy is still fighting in guerrilla attacks in the countryside according to rumors.
One of the other prisoners, that rascal Locky Thunder, spoke up.
General Guy's on the run now. Auntie Guy got captured a few weeks ago, so it's probably not much longer. That's unfortunate. I do have to say, though,
said another prisoner, a buzzy beetle named Channel,
your son the Conqueror led an admirable rebellion. If he had just had a little more help, he would have defeated Morton, I believe. The Conqueror.
Boom Boom laughed and then coughed.
Iggy. Kamek trained him well in the art of magic, and he used illusions and spells to take down most of Morton's armies. All of the Koopalings except for Roy joined him, but Morton was too strong. That's what Boom Boom was told, at least.
That made Bowser proud, that a son he regarded as weak could be such a surprising threat. Maybe the Koopalings were all more powerful than he suspected. They were royals, after all.
So, is there any way we can defeat this man?
Bowser asked.
We did it before, so. Actually, Boom Boom doesn't know,
Boom Boom said. They did it before, but they were all young, infused with the passions of youth and the vibrancy that was a clean and ambitious revolution. Bowser had the perfect origin as a neglected prince come back to seize what was his. This endeavor here almost seemed petty in comparison. And Bowser himself would soon be destroyed in a magical incantation to restore Morton's body.
I have a plan,
Bowser said.
But I don't know if we can manage it like this. So, we need to escape. We need luck.
End of chapter. Chapter 27, Chapter 27, Luck Comes. Chapter 27, Luck Comes. It was a while before Bowser was able to calm his nerves and realize again how upset he felt about practically everything in his life. He was still a failure, still unhappy, still a loser in a body he hated. Conquering the Mushroom Kingdom, inhabiting the form and identity of someone as energized and cool as Bowsette, was a breath of fresh air, but even that didn't do anything but distract him from his feelings at hand. He was shaken to the absolute core by the dry bones resurrection of Morton Koopa, the imprisonment of most of his children and his impending doom. It meant that everything he did, from abdicating the throne to coming here, was all for naught. It invalidated his entire life and all its past accomplishments to have such an evil man, a ruthless tyrant, come back to life and take over, after all he accomplished, no, he and his many allies accomplished. At this point, being executed in the Mushroom Kingdom would have been a saving grace, because at least then he would never have known about Kamek's incomprehensibly idiotic decision to bring Morton back. The way Boom Boom was suffering was also entirely his fault, and he had to bear witness to it in plain view. The succession crisis was over and Boom Boom's threat to the throne should have been over, but Morton must surely have been keeping him down here with the sole purpose of further torturing Bowser. Little did Morton know that Bowser was very good already at torturing himself. The two of them had come up with a plan were they ever to escape. They just needed a way to do that, and it so far had never come. Bowser was starting to get very worried that Morton was going to seize him for whatever magical ceremonies they needed to perform to restore Morton to his full strength. Without the high priestess around to perform it, it was going to be a difficult and delicate situation, so they were likely practicing and trying to find a magician with enough skill and finesse to actually do it. The Magic Koopa clan was vast, but most were not of that level of skill, and surely Kami Koopa would not sink so low as to sacrifice her own surrogate grandson or great-grandson, if it came to that. Sigh. The Koopa Patrol guards, who cycled out every few hours and stood mostly silently, even if Bowser and Boom Boom and the others were talking loudly together, suddenly began chattering.
A visit? No way.
One said.
Who are you, from her? Well, okay then, but... no funny business.
The cell door opened. A woman in a blue shell entered.
Mario let me borrow one of his power-ups,
she said. She leaned in close to Bowser and whispered,
You guys are really stupid, you know that? This disguise is not very good. How in blue blazes did I get past you all without anyone recognizing me? Peach, what are you doing here?
Bowser asked.
Wait, is this actually you? Hey.
She squatted down, her knees touching the muddy, damp floor and getting dirt all over herself. She quaked at this, but kept talking.
I know this was dangerous and stupid and I didn't even tell Toadsworth that I was doing this, but I'm here for you, Bowsette. I'm here to rescue you.
Bowsette smiled. End of chapter. Chapter 28, Chapter 28, Getting Outta Here. Chapter 28, Getting Outta Here. Boom Boom was confused. Who was this strange-looking Koopa with a blue shell, and why was Bowser acting so familiar with her? Why was she calling him
Bowsette?
It didn't seem to matter, though, because this lady, whether she was a Koopa shepherdess from Windmillville or some defector to the Mushroom Kingdom living in Decalburg, was currently freeing Bowser of her chains, and soon moved to take them off Boom Boom himself. He had hardly walked in months, and it was very difficult to stand. He felt like he was going to collapse when he took his first few steps, but he soon steadied himself. The other prisoners were soon free as well, and immediately began assaulting the Koopa Patrols that guarded the prison. Locky Thunder summoned his cloud and tossed a lightning bolt, disabling 4 of them. It was a full-on prison break.
Charge!
A Chargin' Chuck yelled as he plowed through a dozen guards at once. Boom Boom struggled to keep up, but Bowser pulled him along with him and the blue-shelled Koopa.
What's happening?
Boom Boom asked.
Remember our plan?
Bowser asked.
Yes, but this wasn't a part of it. We were supposed to be quiet about escaping. I've altered the plan,
Bowser explained.
Pray I don't alter it further.
Boom Boom made sure to pray to every deity he could think of. The 3 of them had taken back the castle prison, lowered the skull flag, and escaped to somewhere nice. Locky Thunder stayed behind to set up the fortress for impending attack by the Koopa Troop army and would fare for himself, but of course would fall just like any other insurrection in Morton Koopa's empire. They had begun a new journey, out towards a new location deeper within enemy territory, and this was where the original plan was going to kick into action. But first, they needed a short rest before they continued on to Chaos Castle. The blue-shelled Koopa sat down and noticed Boom Boom staring. She waved.
I don't think we've met,
she said.
With all due respect. Who are you?
He asked. Bowser laughed.
You were never the brightest,
Bowser said. The Koopa removed her shell, and the shell turned out to be just a power-up suit. This was Princess Peach. Boom Boom nearly fainted.
WH? Why?
Boom Boom exclaimed.
Boom Boom. I kind of have a story to tell you,
Bowser said. End of chapter. Chapter 29, Chapter 29, Black is the New Orange. Chapter 29, Black is the New Orange.
Bowsette? That's what Boom Boom should call you.
Boom Boom asked. He seemed confused, which was about normal. Bowser hadn't been able to tell practically anyone about these weird feelings except for Peach in all this time and didn't know if anyone would ever be able to understand. It was hard to process even for, himself.
It feels better that way,
he tried to explain.
I don't get it either, but it's something I've been trying to understand for a while now.
Peach raised a finger like she was going to explain further, but Bowser pushed her hand down. This wasn't her time for that. By the way, Peach right now was looking smoking hot in a miniskirt and work boots. This was apparently her most casual, ready-to-do battle outfit, and that was hilarious to think about.
All I mean is that I think that Bowser, the giant Koopa King, doesn't reflect who I am on the inside. I think that Bowsette does,
he said.
But it's complicated. Boom Boom thinks he understands,
Boom Boom said.
You're happier as Bowsette, and that's what Boom Boom wants you to be, so Boom Boom will respect that. Thanks.
He felt a bit like crying, but managed to push that away. Boom Boom thought further.
So is this what's been troubling you all this time?
He asked. Bowser shook his head. Or, Bowsette shook her head. It was going to take getting used to, even for herself.
I don't think so. I feel so down all the time because I feel like a complete failure at everything I ever do, and being Bowsette doesn't change that.
Wow, she was being extremely honest right now.
Therapy would help,
Boom Boom said.
You mean the magic spell? I don't have any magic powers anymore,
Bowsette said.
No, Boom Boom means like the guy Boom Boom used to see, Dr. Sigmund Shrinkasaurus. He helped Boom Boom a lot through some times when he had shell shock from the revolution. Shell shock? Like the party game where you fight with tanks?
Bowsette asked.
No, Boom Boom means traumatic memories from whatever. Get help. We will get help,
Bowsette said.
When we get to Chaos Castle and free my children.
Boom Boom didn't respond. Peach, though, stepped up close to Bowsette, putting her hand on her rugged, scaly, gross face.
I do have to tell you something, though,
she said.
Yes.
Slap.
That's for escaping from me when I was pardoning you,
Peach yelled.
I was kidnapped. It's not my fault. That was hardly a kidnapping. You could have beaten them up. I was in chains. Oh, fair point,
Peach said. Another slap.
Ow! What was that for? Now you know what being kidnapped feels like.
Peach hugged Bowsette, and then rummaged through her pocket to pull out a new power-up.
Is that? It's not for Boom Boom, that's for sure,
Peach said.
Try it on.
Bowsette took the super crown and in a surge of light and electricity, transformed into a humanoid shape, her scales disappearing and skin replacing it. Her tail and horns receded, and a long black dress formed around her body. Bowsette was now. Well, she was still Bowsette. That part was on the inside. But now she felt right. She felt powerful. Boom Boom bowed, as if Bowsette was a completely different leader than the one he had been gazing upon moments earlier.
Ka 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 ka.
She laughed, a high-pitched shriek of victory. She held her head toward the sky and... still no fire. She really wanted to breathe fire again.
I really want to breathe fire again,
Bowsette said.
I've been looking into that,
Peach said.
There's a way to restore your magic. But we can't get to that yet. We still have to save the Koopalings. How do you know they are in Chaos Castle, anyway?
Boom Boom asked.
A little birdie told me,
Peach answered with a wink.
You are working with Valencia?
Bowsette asked.
No, I mean... whatever.
She slapped Bowsette again for good measure. End of chapter. Chapter 30, Chapter 30, Chaos Theatrics. Chapter 30, Chaos Theatrics. Boom Boom threw the two royal females onto the ground, both of them skidding along the dirty surface and frankly ruining their dresses because that stuff was not coming out.
Boom Boom caught these two traitors.
Boom Boom shouted.
They were plotting against Morden and tried to cause a prison break nearby. But don't worry, Boom Boom and his friends helped put it down. Now we need to lock them away before they can do any more damage.
The Sumo Bro guards looked down at Princess Peach and Lordess Bowsette with disgruntled disdain.
Dude, I hate processing new inmates,
one said.
Can you please do the paperwork this time? I'll owe you, I swear.
Deal, the other said.
You clod.
Bowsette shouted.
How could you turn on us like this? Boom Boom's duty is to the throne,
Boom Boom said.
Not to a pretender. We don't care,
the Sumo Bro said.
Just get on with your way and...
Boom Boom wound up his arms and then spun rapidly into them, knocking both guards down and out. Peach and Bowsette got up.
Not as strong as Boom Boom used to be, but that was pretty fun,
he said.
Let's go in and free everyone,
Peach said. She put back on her blue shell power-up so that nobody would be able to recognize her. Bowsette appreciates a finely shaped shell, but an imposter shell like this was not attractive at all. If it weren't for the necessity of battle, she would never have allowed Peach to make such an ugly fashion statement. They descended the stairs into the main prison hall. Chaos Castle was, strangely, much more secure than the castle Bowsette and Boom Boom had been imprisoned in. There were many more types of guards than just the simple patrols, including dark Lakitus circling over the cells and several Twomps and Hwomps right in front of the entrances. If only they had enough coins to bribe these guys into being on their way. But Bowsette knew as much as any dictator that fear was one of the strongest motivators. They would have to beat these guys to surrender. And that's what they did. Bowsette jumped into the air, kicked two Lakitus down off their clouds, and floated down gently to the... Aw crap! Bowsette didn't have the magic to be able to float anymore. She crashed on the ground and was disabled for a couple moments. Boom Boom and Shell Peach were bouncing around the place, Boom Boom spinning and throwing his own spiked shell at guards, and then throwing Peach around and letting her ricochet around the place. Soon they broke into the cells and freed the prisoners on this first floor, which included an assortment of black bob-ombs, fire bros, and wigglers. A very dangerous combination, but one that was able to take down the guards in just moments. Bowsette finally summoned the strength to get back up. Okay, there. Boom Boom and Peach looked at her with glares, but she ignored them and dusted off her dress. She did what she wanted in battle, and that was her strategy. Caring whether or not it succeeded was beyond her capabilities. They continued on down to the next floor, where there were several rocky wrenches throwing things at them. Peach pulled out a parasol and began rotating it rapidly. As she dropped into her shell, it spun faster and faster, to the point that every wrench that flew this way bounced off her and back to the guards. Bowsette had to one-up that, then. She dashed forward towards a large thwomp, brought out her claws, and scratched it twice in an X formation. It exploded, sending chunks of rocks everywhere. A few automated clown cars flew into the room, just as sirens blared. The Koopa Troop army was likely onto them now, so they needed to hurry. Behind them were more Koopa trolls and the same sumo bros from before. They went further down the hall. Dozens of Spinies marched towards them, and there were a few bullet bill launchers set up, as well as a huge chain chomp. Bowsette looked at Peach, and then to Boom Boom.
We need a plan, and quick. She thought quickly. We've all got shells. Let's use them.
Boom Boom and Peach nodded. Peach and Bowsette each got inside their shells and Boom Boom picked them up. He began winding himself up, twisting his body as far as it would go, and then let go. He spun around at rapid speed, using the most of his meager amount of magic to shoot fireballs in a circle around him. Along with that, he launched Peach backwards towards the guards there and Bowsette forwards, aiming directly for the chain chomp. Bowsette crashed into several Spinies, going at such a fast rate that a few of them instantly burst into flames. Bowsette collided with the chain chomp, denting its spherical body and sending it flying backwards until it itself collided with and obliterated one of the cell walls. Paragoombas with clipped wings poured out, casing chaos but no real damage to any of the guards. Bowsette hopped out of the inside of her shell and looked back to see Peach still bouncing around in her shell, holding her parasol outwards and bashing it into nearby guards. Atta girl! What to do about the rocky wenches and Spinies around Bowsette, then? Well, here was one drastic, foolish move. She did a jump and slide, got behind the chain chomp and smashed in the wooden spike keeping it chained down. She then grabbed the beast by its chain, mustered all the strength in her weak human body, and began spinning it around like a weapon. It yelped a few times before accepting its unfortunate fate, and Bowsette had officially tamed her first chain chomp as a half-human. She swung it in a circle, smashing it into every enemy around her, and obliterating the bullet bill cannons before they had a chance to do much damage to any of them. With Peach and Boom Boom having mostly cleared out the enemies behind them aside from the clown car robots above, Bowsette made the decision to continue forward, where she could see a large holding cell that was likely home to her children. 4 Koopa trolls stood in front of the cell, and she could see at least Lemmy hopping up and down to try and get above them and figure out what all the commotion was. Instead of fighting them, Bowsette simply glared, licked her lips and then roared, letting out as fierce a growl as her body could give. It wasn't half as impressive as her Koopa roar, but it was just as effective. The guards turned tail, literally, and ran away. She swung the chain chomp one more time, breaking down the bars to the cell, and then let the monster go free, leaving it up to its own devices. Peach and Boom Boom quickly caught up to her. 5 Koopalings, all here, Ludwig, Lemmy, Bowser Jr., Morton Jr., and last of all, Iggy, the conqueror who led a rebellion against his grandfather. She ran over to them, grabbed them all together, and gave a big huge
"Oh, boys!"
She let out a few tears. As Bowser she never would have deigned it necessary to express her emotions like this, but she couldn't help herself. She cried her eyeballs out to know her kids were safe. They were very confused.
"Don't worry about her,"
Boom Boom said.
"She's an ally."
Oh, that was right. She let go and saw their very confused faces, having just been embraced by an unfamiliar peach-like being with no explanation. She folded her arms and pretended to be all aloof about it.
"I'd,"
she said.
"I saved you. Now get on out of here."
They all looked to Boom Boom for explanation.
"Who is?"
Bowser Jr. wasn't even sure how to ask the question.
"My name is Bowsette,"
she shouted.
"And listen up. You 5 are heroes. But you would better understand these directions and follow them closely."
They tuned in with great attention.
"My F, that evil Morton Koopa, Dry Morton, whatever you want to call him, must be stopped. But he is too powerful right now. Even in his current form he is too much for anyone to handle, and he aims on regaining his lost power by utilizing celestial blood in a sacrificial spell. See, last time we beat him, we did it with the Firestone amulet. But that was destroyed. So we have to try another way. You 5 are strong, and you did a noble thing, but you cannot defeat Morton Koopa in his current state. In fact, if he gets his hands on you..." She stuck a finger into Morton Jr.'s chest. "He will be able to use your blood to revive himself fully." "WH? Why me?"
Morton Jr. asked in a grunt.
Because your blood is more pure than the rest of your siblings."
She wanted to stop right here and tell him everything, that he was actually Bowsette's much younger brother, that he was the heir apparent to the current throne, but it wasn't the right time. It'd give him ambitions that he simply didn't have the ability to fulfill. Maybe another time.
"The rest of you, please protect him. Do you understand?"
The other 4 Koopalings nodded.
"Good,"
she said.
"Then what you should do is fight underground. Free castles, help fugitives escape. Help General Guy, if you can. But don't let yourselves be captured. Be strong. Wait for us. When we come back to Dark Land, we will not be alone, and you will be able to join us for the ultimate battle. I promise."
She looked directly at Iggy.
"Someday you will be a real conqueror. But for now, you just need to be a savior. Do it for your father."
Iggy gave one decisive nod, and his glasses fell off a little bit.
"For Bowser. For King Bowser."
The 5 of them shouted in unison. Bowser Jr. looked down in sadness, still too young to be able to get past the fact that his father was apparently gone. Bowsette took a few steps back from them and looked at her 2 companions.
"If we want to escape Dark Land today, we need to do it soon. The blargs come out more often at night, so we can't risk moving too far then. Do you know the fastest way out?"
Peach asked.
I am the Lordess Bowsette, tracker of 1,000 paths, devourer of worlds. I know every facet in the kingdom. Every lava lake, every Goomba hamlet. If you want a quick way out, you've got the right gal."
The Koopalings were still very confused about this strange woman, but they seemed eager to follow her orders. That was okay with her for now. She would tell them when she was ready that she was their father. Our mother? Right now was not the right time for that, not at all. They escaped the prison together, setting up a few bombs to knock the whole prison section of Chaos Castle down. And then they bid their farewells to the Koopalings, who joined the Fire Bros. And Paragumbas and Wigglers and other escapees making their way towards safety. Bowsette would be back. She had promised, after all. But for now, she would be once again leaving Bowser's kingdom, and probably for a very long time. She took one last look at her sons before they disappeared from view, and prayed to the spirit stars that they would watch over them. End of chapter.